Helena Blavatsky knew what happens to the soul in the first year after death, and this knowledge was deliberately kept from you your entire life. The ancient wisdom she possessed revealed the most profound secret about human existence, the soul's journey during those crucial 365 days after physical death. This information was systematically suppressed by religious institutions and government agencies who profit from your fear of death and ignorance of spiritual reality. The moment your heart stops beating isn't the end. It's the beginning of the greatest spiritual journey your consciousness will ever undertake. Every major religion has hidden fragments of this truth, preserving just enough to maintain control while obscuring the liberating whole. What I'm about to share has been concealed in esoteric texts, deliberately mistranslated, and kept from public knowledge because it threatens the very foundation of those who maintain power through spiritual ignorance. Blavatsky discovered that death is merely the crossing of a threshold between vibrational states. Think of consciousness as existing on a spectrum of frequencies. Death is simply the moment your awareness shifts from one bandwidth to another. This frequency shift is the key to understanding everything that follows. The elite occult brotherhoods have always known this and have carefully guarded this knowledge, sharing it only within their inner circles while feeding the masses comforting lies about harps and clouds, or terrifying stories of eternal punishment. The first revelation is that consciousness doesn't end at death. It expands. Your awareness doesn't diminish, but intensifies as it's freed from physical limitations. Blavatsky called this process breaking the vessel, where the soul energy contained within the body is finally released to experience reality in its fuller form. But here's what they don't want you to know. This transition follows specific patterns and time frames that can be navigated consciously if you understand them. The soul begins its journey still closely connected to the physical world for approximately 7 days after death. During this time, the energetic cords connecting consciousness to the body gradually dissolve. This is why ancient traditions around the world prescribed 7-day funeral rites, not as superstition, but as practical spiritual technology. The modern funeral industry has deliberately shortened this process to 48 hours, disrupting the natural transition of the soul and keeping the deceased energetically confused and more susceptible to manipulation by forces that profit from spiritual disorientation. These first 7 days are crucial because the soul experiences a state similar to dreaming while still maintaining awareness of the physical world. It can see loved ones grieving but cannot communicate with them through physical means. This creates the first great challenge of the after-death state, accepting the inability to interact with the material world in familiar ways. The consciousness that understands this transition moves forward peacefully, while the unprepared soul often becomes trapped in confusion and attachment. Religious institutions that should guide souls through this transition have instead monopolized the process, claiming that only their specific prayers, rituals, or intermediaries can ensure safe passage. They've taken the universal science of death discovered by initiates like Blavatsky and corrupted it into systems of control. The truth is that this journey follows natural spiritual laws accessible to all souls regardless of religious affiliation. What you're hearing right now contradicts everything mainstream religious organizations have told you. If you're feeling resistance to these ideas, ask yourself, who benefits from your ignorance about death? Who profits when you surrender your spiritual autonomy to external authorities? The courage to face these questions is the first step toward liberating your soul from artificial constraints. If you're finding value in this hidden knowledge, remember to support the continuation of this work by engaging with this content. Your active participation helps spread these liberating truths to others still trapped in ignorance. The second great revelation concerns what happens between the 7th and 40th day after death. Blavatsky discovered ancient texts describing how the soul undergoes a comprehensive life review during this period. Unlike simplistic religious notions of judgment by external deities, this review is self-directed and guided by higher aspects of your own consciousness. The soul experiences not just its actions, but their effects on others, feeling every emotion it caused in others throughout its incarnation. This phenomenon has been recorded across cultural traditions, from Egyptian soul-weighing ceremonies to Tibetan bardo teachings. Modern science has unwittingly confirmed aspects of this through research into near-death experiences. where life review is consistently reported across demographic, religious, and cultural boundaries. Quantum physics now suggests consciousness may exist in a non-local field that retains information even after physical death, precisely what Blavatsky proposed over a century ago. During this 40-day period, the soul encounters what Eastern traditions call the Akashic records, the vibrational imprint of every thought, action, and intention experienced during physical life. Modern research into consciousness studies and information theory now suggests the possibility that information is never truly lost. It changes form but remains encoded in the quantum field, exactly as Blavatsky described through different terminology. The third revelation concerns how consciousness navigates different vibrational planes after this initial 40-day period. Blavatsky described something like a cosmic frequency spectrum, where souls naturally gravitate to dimensional planes matching their own vibrational state. This isn't reward or punishment but simple resonance, like frequencies naturally attracting each other. This explains why ancient texts describe various heavens and hells not as places of reward or punishment, but as vibrational states corresponding to different levels of consciousness. Think about how certain environments make you feel comfortable while others feel oppressive. This same principle operates after death, except the barriers between vibrational states are more permeable. Your consciousness naturally seeks resonant frequencies, environments that match your predominant thought patterns, emotional states, and spiritual development. This is why cultivating higher consciousness during life directly affects your experience after death. The control system doesn't want you to realize that your spiritual destiny is determined by vibrational resonance rather than external judgment. This understanding places spiritual power firmly in your hands rather than with external authorities claiming to intercede on your behalf. Every major religious tradition has been corrupted to replace this empowering truth with systems of external control. Consider how deeply this affects your daily existence. The thoughts, emotions, and intentions you cultivate now are creating the vibrational signature that will determine your soul's journey after death. You've always felt there was something more to existence than the materialist explanation. Now you understand why. Your intuition was recognizing a truth your conscious mind had been programmed to reject. The invisible prison most souls experience after death isn't created by external forces, but by their own attachment to physical existence. The consciousness that remains fixated on material pleasures, possessions, or identities becomes trapped in lower vibrational states, where it experiences the spiritual equivalent of withdrawal symptoms. This explains why ancient wisdom traditions emphasize detachment from material identification, not as moral virtue but as practical preparation for the after-death state. The archons of materialist thinking, whether religious dogmatists or scientific materialists, collaborate to keep humanity trapped in physical identification, ensuring most souls remain confused and disoriented after death. The system profits from your spiritual ignorance while alive and your confusion after death. Breaking this cycle requires conscious preparation during physical life for the transitions that follow. If you're resonating with these profound truths, consider sharing this knowledge with others who might benefit from this awakening. The more souls that understand these principles, the more we collectively raise our vibrational state. The fourth revelation concerns what Blavatsky discovered about consciousness after the first 40 days. Between the 40-day mark and the first-year anniversary of death, the soul gradually transitions from identification with its past incarnation to preparation for future experience. This is neither instant nor automatic. It unfolds according to the soul's own readiness and vibrational state. During this period, advanced souls often encounter what Blavatsky called the guardians of hidden wisdom, evolved consciousnesses that assist in the integration of life experience and spiritual development. These aren't external deities, but aspects of universal consciousness that appear in forms the individual soul can comprehend. Modern psychologists might recognize these as archetypal manifestations of collective consciousness, while quantum theorists might describe them as information-rich aspects of the unified field. The greatest deception perpetrated against humanity is the idea that consciousness is limited to the brain and ends at death. This materialist fiction serves those who profit from your spiritual disempowerment. In reality, consciousness is the foundation of all existence, not its byproduct. Physical matter emerges from consciousness, not the reverse. This understanding was at the core of Blavatsky's teachings and remains the most suppressed scientific and spiritual truth today. Your own direct experience confirms this truth. The awareness reading these words right now, that which experiences thoughts rather than being them, cannot be reduced to biochemical processes. This observing presence is what continues after physical death, freed from bodily limitations, but retaining its essential nature as individuated consciousness within the greater field of awareness. The most personal revelation concerns how your consciousness now affects your experience after death. The beliefs, attachments, and vibrational patterns you cultivate today are creating the template for your after-death experience. Those who live in fear, hatred, or attachment to physical pleasures create a corresponding vibrational state that persists after death. Those who cultivate love, compassion, and spiritual awareness create a very different experiential template. This isn't abstract philosophy, but practical spiritual technology. Ancient mystery schools developed specific practices designed to prepare consciousness for the after-death state. These included visualization exercises, sound technologies, and meditative practices that familiarize the soul with navigational landmarks in the subtle realms. These techniques were systematically removed from mainstream religious practice, replaced with simplified rituals that transferred spiritual authority to external institutions. The systems that control modern society, from educational institutions to media conglomerates, deliberately promote materialist consciousness because spiritually awakened humans are harder to manipulate through fear, desire, and attachment. Your spiritual awareness threatens their control paradigm. This is why true spiritual knowledge has been systematically suppressed, ridiculed, or corrupted throughout history. If this information resonates with your deeper knowing, consider exploring these ideas further and sharing them with others ready to awaken. The collective raising of consciousness creates ripples throughout both physical and non-physical planes of existence. The fifth revelation brings us to the divine spark within you that transcends both life and death. Blavatsky discovered that at the core of human consciousness exists what ancient traditions called the Atman, Buddha nature, or Christ consciousness, a pure awareness that never incarnates fully into physical form, but extends a portion of itself into material existence for the purpose of experience and evolution. This divine spark is your true nature, not the personality, memories, or identity constructed during physical life. It remains untouched by physical death because it never fully entered the material plane. This understanding explains why those who have glimpsed their true nature through meditation, near-death experiences, or spiritual awakening report a profound recognition of immortality and belonging to something vastly greater than the individual self. Look at the evidence in your own experience. Those rare moments of profound peace, clarity, or connection that transcend ordinary consciousness, perhaps in nature, during meditation, in creative flow, or in profound love, are glimpses of your true nature shining through the veil of constructed identity. These experiences aren't anomalies, but momentary alignments with your fundamental reality. The conscious recognition of this divine spark is what ancient traditions called enlightenment, salvation, or liberation. It's not something granted by external authority, but the direct recognition of what you already are. This recognition fundamentally transforms the after-death experience from one of confusion and attachment to one of conscious navigation and expansion. Imagine consciousness as an ocean with individual souls as waves. Each wave appears separate but remains fundamentally water. Death is simply the wave returning to recognition of its true nature as ocean. Those who realize their oceanic nature while still in wave form experience both physical life and death very differently from those identified solely with their temporary form. The greatest tragedy of modern civilization is that it systematically disconnects humans from recognition of their divine nature. Through constant distraction, materialist indoctrination, and spiritual disempowerment, the system ensures most people remain identified with temporary aspects of self rather than their eternal nature. This serves those who profit from human limitation and fear. The sixth revelation concerns how Blavatsky discovered that consciousness creates its own reality, both during physical life and after death. The after-death state isn't predetermined, but shaped by the vibrational patterns, beliefs, and awareness developed during incarnation. This explains why different cultures report different after-death experiences. Souls manifest environments corresponding to their expectations and vibrational state. This creative power of consciousness becomes significantly amplified after physical death, when awareness is no longer filtered through the limiting mechanisms of the brain. Thoughts and emotions instantaneously manifest as experiential reality. This is why developing thought discipline and emotional mastery during physical life becomes crucial preparation for the after-death state. The hidden controllers of religious and social systems don't want you to discover this creative power, because it places spiritual authority within you rather than with external institutions. They've systematically replaced teachings about consciousness mastery with doctrines of external salvation, judgment, or materialist oblivion, anything that keeps you from recognizing your inherent spiritual sovereignty. If you're connecting with these truths, consider becoming a vessel for this awakening knowledge by sharing it with others when appropriate. Your conscious participation helps counteract centuries of deliberate suppression. The seventh revelation brings us to the transformational power awaiting every soul. After the initial adjustments of the after-death state, consciousness encounters unprecedented opportunities for healing, growth, and expansion. Freed from physical limitations, but retaining individuated awareness, the soul can resolve karmic patterns, integrate fragmented aspects of self, and prepare for higher expression, whether in future physical incarnations or in more subtle realms of existence. Blavatsky discovered that this healing process often involves what modern psychology would call shadow integration, confronting and resolving unacknowledged aspects of self. This process happens naturally and compassionately in higher vibrational states, but can be challenging for souls trapped in lower frequencies due to attachment, fear, or materialist identification. This explains why ancient wisdom traditions emphasized spiritual preparation during physical life. The consciousness that has already begun integrating its shadow aspects, releasing attachment, and recognizing its divine nature, experiences the after-death state as liberation rather than confrontation. The unprepared soul often experiences aspects of this process as challenging or even frightening, giving rise to religious concepts of purgation or purification. The modern world has systematically dismantled the spiritual technologies designed to prepare consciousness for this transition. Ancient funerary texts like the Egyptian Book of the Dead or Tibetan Bardo Thodol weren't religious superstition, but practical navigational guides for consciousness. Their modern equivalents have been commercialized, corrupted, or dismissed as primitive mythology. The eighth revelation unveils how consciousness transcends the artificial boundaries created by physical existence. Blavatsky discovered that after death, souls recognize their fundamental interconnection with all consciousness. The separate self-sense that dominates physical experience gradually dissolves as awareness expands beyond individuated identity, while paradoxically retaining its unique perspective within the unified field. This recognition of fundamental unity, that you are both individuated consciousness and inseparable from the whole, transforms the after-death journey from isolated experience to cosmic homecoming. The soul recognizes it was never truly separate from other souls, from nature, or from the source of all consciousness. This realization is the true gnosis or awakening at the heart of all authentic spiritual traditions before they were corrupted for control purposes. The path to freedom begins with recognizing these artificial limitations while still in physical form. The practices that develop this awareness, meditation, contemplation, service, compassion, aren't merely moral virtues, but practical technologies for expanding consciousness beyond its conditioned boundaries. This expansion directly affects the soul's journey during the crucial first year after physical death. If you feel called to deepen your understanding of these principles, consider exploring contemplative practices that allow direct recognition of your true nature beyond constructed identity. Your spiritual preparation creates ripples through both your current experience and your after-death journey. The ninth revelation concerns the relationship between living and deceased consciousness. Blavatsky discovered that the emotional states of the living directly affect souls in transition. excessive grief, attachment, or denial creates vibrational disruptions that can impede the natural expansion of consciousness after death. Conversely, love offered without attachment creates supportive vibrational fields that assist the transitioning soul. This explains why ancient wisdom traditions prescribed specific emotional practices for the living during the first year after a loved one's death. These weren't mere cultural traditions, but sophisticated spiritual technologies designed to support the soul's journey. Modern grief practices that encourage prolonged attachment or denial often unwittingly hinder the natural transitions of consciousness. The most powerful gift you can offer a departed loved one is your own spiritual awareness, recognizing that their consciousness continues its journey while releasing attachment to their physical presence. This combination of recognition and release creates the optimal vibrational environment for both the transitioning soul and those remaining in physical form. If these revelations have expanded your understanding, consider sharing this knowledge with others who might benefit from this liberating perspective. The awakening of collective consciousness creates positive transformation across all planes of existence. The final revelation brings us to the ultimate truth Blavatsky discovered about the first year after death. By the 1-year anniversary, most souls have completed their integration of the previous lifetime and stand at a choice point for further evolution. Some choose to assist others still incarnated through inspiration or guidance. Others focus on further development in non-physical realms. Some begin preparation for new incarnational experiences aligned with their evolutionary purpose. This choice emerges not from external judgment, but from the soul's own recognition of its next step toward greater awareness and expression. The consciousness that understands these principles during physical life sets powerful intentions that shape this choice point after death. This is the true meaning of spiritual destiny, not predetermined fate, but conscious participation in your evolutionary journey. The greatest awakening happens when you realize these principles don't just apply to some future after-death state, but to your consciousness right now. The same awareness reading these words will continue beyond physical death. The qualities you cultivate now, love, awareness, compassion, wisdom, create the vibrational template for your continuing journey. You are not alone in this awakening. Throughout history, individuals have discovered these truths despite systematic suppression. Today, millions are awakening to the limitations of materialist consciousness and remembering their divine nature. This collective remembering creates ripples throughout the fabric of reality, affecting both the physical world and subtle planes of existence. Your recognition of these principles isn't coincidental, but part of an awakening happening across humanity. The divine spark within you, your true nature beyond constructed identity, is calling you to remember what you've always known beneath the programming of limited consciousness. This remembering transforms not just your future after-death experience, but your living reality right now. The power to shape your journey, both in physical life and beyond, has always resided within you. It cannot be granted by external authority because it is your inherent nature as conscious awareness. This recognition is the greatest liberation possible, the awakening from the dream of separation into the reality of your eternal nature. This is what Helena Blavatsky discovered, what the controllers have hidden, and what your soul has always known.